So this is the second tutorial on study 2. The first one was a very simple pencil crayon tutorial. This one I'm going to do in a journaling Bible with some traceables and some watercolour, cheapish watercolours. And this is my planning. So I don't normally plan, but because I'm doing it for you and I wanted to make sure everything was okay, so I've planned it. But it's a handy tip if you are not very good at doing impromptu to use squared paper. You can see it's squared, and here we've got the lettering all laid out ready. This particular quote is slightly different in this Bible. So this is the quote as it's written in your tutorials, in your devotionals. In this one it says, the angel said, Mary said, this is what Mary said to the angel, how will it be? Mary asked the angel, since I am a virgin. So first tip, when you get a new pen, so these are the types of pens you're going to get in your kit, depends on which one, depends on what nibs. This one's a 0.5 nib, all kinds of different nibs. I suggest you use these preface pages to test your pen out, and that's what I've done here. I've written testing in that pen, and I can see the little shadow, but it won't go through. So any new media, I suggest you do that either in that page or in some Bibles, but it isn't the case in this Bible. At the end you've got lots of pages you can test with. I've got a big brush, a little brush, a pencil, my artist pen, a rubber, an eraser, a ruler, and I've got my trusty heat gun off to the side here, so I can use that because I'm impatient. And then I've got my traceables. So you could use both traceables and do both of the parts of the study together here, but I'm just going to use these ones that are on this one. So I've decided because of my planning that I actually want my angel to be at a bit of an angle up here, and as you can see through it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to trace around it. So I'm going to pause the video and while I trace all my images. So I've traced my drawings a bit closer, and instead of using the really thick one, the 2.5, I've used a 0.05, just because I felt I wanted a thinner line. You can buy these uni pens in kits. I haven't sent the 0.05 out to anybody in their kits because they are very specialist. They're tiny, so I kept those for myself. I don't use them very often either. So I've given it a bit of a blast with my heat tool. You can just leave it to go off, to go completely dry. Then I've taken to it with the eraser and got rid of my pencil marks, because once we put watercolour on here, you're not going to shift the pencil marks. I've made Mary look up, so I don't think you can see on that. But if you look at your printables, particularly the big one, I'll show you on the big one. I've already gone over this in the other one. So on the big one, can you see she's looking straight forward? So by just tilting the pupil to the top, then you can make it look like she's looking up. And what I'm going to do is I've decided I'm going to put a very light wash of blue on the background. Now I've just got a little bit of paper at the side just to make sure I don't get too much water. What I did, these are Prima Marketing watercolours. You can use whatever you have. So I wet them beforehand with a spritzer. So this happens to be a Derwent one, but you can get the cheap one from Amazon or from wherever. Now, just be aware that your page is going to crinkle. We are putting lots of water onto a Bible page that isn't designed for Bible pages. It will crinkle. It may go through. It depends how precious you are with your Bible pages, whether that bothers you or not. So I've just put a very, very light wash. That's a very, very light layer. So I just added lots of water, and it's very, very pale, and watercolours always dry pale and then you put them on. So this will be a very, very pale wash. So I'm just going to dry it. When I'm drying, I'm just pulling the page out gently to keep it as flat as possible. It will crinkle. I don't mind it crinkling. I've got no page prep on here, just for this. I don't mind, you don't really need to page prep. I'll show you when I turn over. Actually, it doesn't go through, it shadows a little bit, but it doesn't go through. So I've kind of got my sky in the background now. And I forgot to say, I've got a piece of scrap card in here. Got the word finishes on it. Just to stop it dripping down the side of my Bible and while it's wet, so it doesn't stick to the pieces of my Bible. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do Mary's headscarf and then Mary's face. So this Derwent brush is massive. Sorry, not Derwent, it's a Darla brush. It's massive, but I love it. For the one that I did here, I went for a purpley pink headscarf. None of those colours would have been true. I think I might go for kind of, I don't know, quite like a purpley pink idea. So let's go for that again. So I'm going to start off. Now I don't mind going over my text, but I never do it that dark that you can't see it. Now I've got a little bit carried away, so I'm just going to lift a little bit up here. Only a little bit. I don't mind that it looks like her headscarf is blowing in the wind, because it might have been when the angels appeared. I'll use a smaller brush just to kind of get a bit more. Then I'm just going to, before I dry it, I'm going to take a little bit more of the pigment, so a bit more straight off. Not completely straight off, so it's a bit darker. And kind of run it in. So we've got a little bit of a contrast. If you want to have a go at watercolours and scared of a brush, the great halfway house is watercolour crayons. So as that's drying, as I was drying it, I was pulling again. Now these hopefully will give me different layers and different textures of the scarf folds. That's those lines are going to be darker. Oops, gone on her face. I'll have to deal with that in a minute. Dry her off. So you can let this air dry. It depends, if you're impatient like me, you won't be able to give it a chance to air dry. Well, she's dry. So next thing, face colour. Now you might have noticed I've got swatches next to each of my palettes just to show what the colours come out like, so I've got an idea, because they never quite look the same. Now I don't know what colour this is, I've mixed it up before for previous job, let it dry. So let's have a look what colour it comes out like. That might be okay if I water it down. Yep. So where I've gone over, I've just gone out my lines there with the reddy pinky colour. I've just gone over it, and it'll eventually blend. Just drying her off. And as I said, if you've watched the previous tutorial, I don't like the idea of the angel being completely white, so I went for a cream colour. Now my white in here is really grubby. Now that's going to go green. I need to find a tiny bit of space that I haven't made a mess of in my palette to get a whitey colour going on somewhere. Let's try up here. Well, that's quite nice, because there was a colour going off already. I just don't want it to be completely white. I just want the angel to be kind of cream or slightly off-white. So that'll do. You can use whatever colours you like. Now we're not going mad, we're not putting loads of shading in, we're not doing loads of layers. So I can't imagine, I said this in the last tutorial if you've watched the first one, I can't imagine how Mary must have been feeling when this angel just popped up and said, "Hi, I'm an angel. You're gonna end up having a baby." I suspect she was quite scared. But also she was obviously got a real faith, because God picked her. She took it all in her stride. And she just didn't have to deal with it at that point. She had to deal with the fact that her son was the Son of God all the way through his life till he died on the cross. So she must have been she had to see him being ridiculed, being tortured, being murdered, or put to death on the cross, and it just must have been horrendous for her. So God picked her for a reason, because he just knew he got inner strength. She got inner strength. And often we are asked to do jobs by God. We're asked to step up to the plate, and we don't think we've got it. But God would not give us, God would not put us in those positions if he didn't think we were able to do what he's asking us to do. And if we haven't got the skills to do, or don't think we've got the skills, he will provide them. He will put the help that we need in our way, in our path rather. God loves us and he doesn't want us to come to any harm. So you've got to be brave like Mary and kind of go for it. Now what I'm doing here is I've wet the wings and I've mixed the grey that was already here with the blue of the sky, and all I've done is I've kept it wet and I'm just dropping bits of blue into it to get kind of a really interesting mottled look. And the angel needs some face colour, so I wanted the angel's face to be a slightly different colour too. So I'm going to get some white and mix it with kind of this to make it a very pale colour. So I'm not saying this is the colour angels' faces would be, but we don't know unless you've met one. I'm going to put a bit more pink in it. Tiny bit more pink. So, and there are people that have met angels. I'm convinced of that. I'm sure of that. Oops. There are people that God have put angels in their way deliberately. There's a song out at the minute, or has been out by a singer in the UK called Rick Astley. I made a bit of a mess of that one. And his song's called Angels on Their Side, or Angels on Our Side. And it's yeah, a really interesting song, because God puts people beside us for those difficult times in life, for those challenging times. So I've kind of got my basis on this. I'll show you the underneath in a minute. And I don't mind that it's pulled and puddled, it's quite fine. So look, it doesn't go through, you can see that through at the minute because it's still a bit damp. So I'm going to work down here for a minute, so I'm just going to pop these aside. So I'm just going to grab some pencil crayons just to give it a little bit more detail. It's not a work of art, I'm just giving a little bit more detail to what I've already got. So I've said in a previous video, I've got artist coloured pencils, but you can do whatever you like, you can use whatever you've got. These are polychromes, this one is. Some of my others are Prismacolors, and I've coloured with all kinds of stuff in the past, and it's up to you what you like. I like Prismacolors because they are very soft and waxy, but the disadvantage is they break easily. So I'm just putting a little bit more light and dark onto her there, and I'm going to use a cream that I've got here, or what looks like a skin tone, just to add a bit more to her skin tone there. And do the same with the angel. I'm going to grab a, now this that's not the colour I want. There is a silver in here somewhere. There we are. So the Prisma and the original Charisma, but you can't get any more colours, these ones. I've had some of these 20 years, so do a silvery colour, and all I'm doing is I'm doing little circles on the wings to get a good texture on there. I'll show you in a minute. I don't think I can show you now. The sun's come out, so you can see. Turn the lights down a little bit, for a bit more texture. The dress or the gown on the angel needs a little bit light and shade, so I'm just going to kind of just give it a bit light and shade. And Mary would have probably had brown eyes, but I fancy giving her a little bit of a blue speck in her eye. It's not gone on very well. You can go back pencil crayons. You can see what colour I like the best. This one's very short. All my favourite colours are very, very, very short. So kind of, I'm not quite happy with how this gown looks. I've just got another colour. A bit more. I think I've got a bit of texture in the hair as well with this brown. I've deliberately kept the angel faceless. I did consider doing Mary faceless, but I thought I might look a bit weird. My friend Claire Graham, you find on Bible Journaling UK, Bible Art Journaling UK Facebook site, does very excellent faceless girls. And if I could draw those, I'd have done the Mary like that. So her lips need a little bit of colour on them. So I'm going to go for quite a neutral colour. So these are just some really fun pencils that I got from an art gallery I went to. They've got two colours, water and wine. There's one that says ice cream or broccoli. This one says save or spurge. On it, they're just fun. I just keep them in there. They're just ordinary quality ones. So that's kind of where I want to be. So the next thing I need to do is how am I going to get my lettering in there? And because I've practiced it, but things haven't quite worked out how I wanted them to, because I've kind of come down a bit further here than I did on the original. If you look, he's right near the top. But what I do know is I'm going to do some very light pencil lines, and I need to have the word how can, and then the same amount of space this be. So how can this be? How can this be seen as I am urgent? Right. So we're going to have 3 lines here. So we're going to how can this be I think the question mark I'm going to put at the bottom there and make a bit of it. So I'm not going to do any fancy writing really. I'm going to do the normal writing in my handwriting, in my just my normal kind of. I've decided to do it in capitals. So I've just done that in block capitals, no messing about. I'll show you this little trick I'm going to do with that in a minute. And I'm just going to work on the H. Now I find it quite challenging working off the edge of a page like this. So I'm going to do it kind of a bit like this. So I've done a normal letter underneath, and all I'm doing is blocking it around the outside. So I'll start with my original letter and then just add a little bit of thickness to it. If you want, you could measure them, up to you. And I'm just going to do a little bit cross hatching, which is kind of this. So it's filled in, but it's not fully filled in, like so, and here. And this can cover a multitude of sins. And then I think I'll do the question mark in the same way. That's it. What I've done is I've rubbed out all the lines, but forgot to turn my camera on while I was in it. I made sure though that everything was dry. Before I did that, I just blasted it with a heat gun. Now it's up to you, but I sometimes use circle, highlight, point out which verse it is that we're where it is in the text. Sorry, I'm a bit tongue-tied, and you could do something like this to make it stand out. And put a little bit of a, but it depends on whether you like writing over your text or not. So this is the finished page. It's just showing you the cross hatching on the letter in there, and it started off by showing you where I'd highlighted the actual verse in the text. I've really enjoyed doing this page. It's a mixture of being a mixture of watercolours and of crayons. So I hope you enjoy and have a go.